Welcome to Chronic Combat Conversations, TB's Tale of the Tape, a UFC Mexico City preview. Here to take a look at all the stats, the height, the reach, the stances, see if there's any camp changes, anything interesting that we need to know about on these fighters going into this matchup. And we're going to avoid looking too much at the lines or any betting opportunities, but if this is your first time here, please go ahead and make sure you throw a like on the channel, on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we're here to, start from the bottom. We'll bring it all the way to the top, and we'll see if there's anything that we can find in the analysis and the breakdown of the stats and some of those things. But I'm very welcome to all my friends in the chat, letting me know what they're thinking, seeing if there's anything I might be missing in my early analysis here. So without further ado, let's get into this bad boy. We're going to start at the bottom. We've got Jamal Pretty Boy Emmers versus Gabriel Fly Miranda. Is he a big fan of Sugar Ray? So I just want to fly. Is that what it is? But overall, we come into this matchup here, and we're going to have Gabriel Miranda. He's going to be 2 years older than Emmers. He's going to be giving up a couple inches of reach, but he will be 1 inch taller. Both orthodox stance. Seems to me like overall, they both have fought a pretty decent level of competition, but Emmers, he has had more UFC fights, and he's definitely had a few ugly losses in the UFC. That's for sure as well. So both these guys have been finished a couple of times. Emmers, he's had more fights go to decision, whereas Miranda, kind of everything is happening fast on his end. So overall, looking at the striking differential, I mean, Jamal Emmers has a clear advantage in distance, striking differential per minute at distance. He's like 1.5 more strikes than his opponents, where Miranda is the exact opposite. So per minute, Emmers should be outlanding Miranda from distance by about 3 strikes. The real question comes into, is Miranda able to get any type of wrestling game going? And yeah, I mean, if anything, he's going to be shooting 10 takedowns per 5 minutes of distance. Like we said, his fights don't last long, but what he does try to do is he tries to get a takedown and he tries to get it fast. Now, that doesn't mean he's not above being controlled. He's been controlled for 47% of his total fight time, and he's only faced 3 takedowns. He's shot plenty of takedowns on his end, but overall, still only spending a below average amount of fight time in control position. And truly, it seems like that would be the only path to victory, because the striking stats and the reach would favor Emmers, and the age, the youth, probably the speed. But yeah, the question is, can Miranda get in there, and can he get a submission attempt, and can he get it early? So we'll have to go do some tape and see if that's in the potential. But based off the stats, if this fight stays standing, and even if it does go down to the mat, it could be Emmers with a little bit of control on his own end. I mean, quite frankly, Emmers only spends 3% of his time being controlled, and he spends over 20% of his time controlling opponent. So, yeah, overall, I mean, Emmers would seem to have an advantage on paper just about everywhere. But then you have to remember it's Jamal Emmers, and, things can go south at any second. It's just, yeah, his losses have been to good competition. So I'll leave it up to you to look at the betting line and determine what you want to do there. But yeah, Emmers, on paper, he should be the pick. In our next fight, we've got Markel Medeiros Mamba versus Austin Thud Hubbard. Oh boy, I mean, this one was a complete mix-up of a matchup where Hubbard steps in on short notice to fight Zellhuber. Zellhuber pulls out, so now Markel Medeiros is stepping in on short notice to take this matchup with Austin Hubbard. So there's definitely a couple factors in that regard where neither of these guys have probably had a full camp, and neither of them have been preparing for each other in this matchup. Man, so it makes it pretty difficult here for me. I'd say Hubbard, he has the reach advantage, going to be a 2-inch reach advantage. Medeiros, same height, both orthodox for the majority of it. Not really a lot to go off of from the stats for Medeiros with only 1 UFC fight. So this is going to be one where we're going to need a bit more tape. Seems pretty even. If nothing, the experience and the reach advantage go to Hubbard. But the youth advantage could go to Medeiros, and that could make up for the reach. So we'll need to do a little bit of digging because ultimately, I don't necessarily love Austin Hubbard as a UFC fighter, but he is, he's a jack of all trades, definitely not a master of any, but he can do a little bit of everything offensively. It's just I don't love what he does defensively, so we'll have to do a little bit more research. Nothing definitive as far as a play from a statistical standpoint here. We'll move on to our next fight. We've got Rafa Gifted Garcia versus Vince from Hell Pichel. And oh man, I mean, Vince giving up 12 years of age in this matchup, but he's going to be 3 inches taller. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. So right off the bat, even though Vince giving up a ton of age, he does have the size advantage. Both these guys, orthodox fighters. Both of them typically going the distance. Pichel very hard to finish. Garcia also very difficult to finish. Even the Grant Dawson fight, I mean, it's the accumulation and it's ground and pound. It's not really, a one-punch knockout or anything like that. So, yeah, in this matchup here, Vince Pichel, from distance, both these guys are about even. Both of them are not necessarily, fantastic. Both of them have negative strike accuracy over expected. So they're not really doing anything special on the feet versus any of their opponents. And then when it comes to the wrestling, well, my problem here is that Pichel spends about 20% of his fight time being controlled. He also controls about 27%, whereas Garcia only spends even smaller amount of time being controlled, and he has the same amount of total control time. So if these guys are getting in extended grappling exchanges, the stats would say that Garcia should have the advantage there. And I don't expect either guy to really want to have extended striking exchanges, but if it was, I would say it's probably Pichel. We'll see here. I think Garcia is a big favorite where the youth, his wrestling definitely could be an advantage. But if this fight were to play at distance and if Pichel is able to stuff takedowns, there could be an argument statistically towards, a big underdog. There's not really a wide differential besides Pichel doesn't really stuff takedowns and Garcia does, and he has a better control rate. So yeah, stats would tell you got to take Rafa Garcia, and he is the large favorite. So what do? It's parlay or pass, and it's probably a pass. Definitely not a dog or pass for me on this one. All right, we've got Lupita Lupi Godinez versus Julia Psycho Palastri. Palastri coming in 4 years younger. They have a similar reach, similar height. Palastri does have a 2-inch reach advantage, though. I take that back. No. This is basically even here. Ultimately, yeah, 2-inch reach, same height, but Palastri is going to be the 4-year younger fighter. They're both orthodox fighters here, and yeah, I mean, what does Lupi do to really push a pace or stand out? It all happens against lower level fighters, and it does appear that, at least from distance, that Lupi should have an advantage. But you can't necessarily guarantee that Lupi is going to throw enough strikes to really stand out and make a difference in any fight she has. It's typically, can she wrestle a bit more than her opponents? And, Palastri here, she doesn't, she spends a decent amount of time being controlled, but she also spends a lot of time in control position. And that's kind of similar to where Lupi Godinez, she kind of does her thing as well, where, yeah, I mean, you'd like to see her have more control time, but against opponents that are able to match her physicality, able to match her athleticism, they can stuff her takedowns or win their own control time. And better strikers, more powerful strikers, can hold their own from distance, and even low-level strikers. We've seen that time and time again with Lupi. So with her as the decent, sizable favorite here, man, that keeps me from wanting to pull the trigger because nothing really is special on her end where we have a larger sample size. Whereas Palastri, yeah, it's a small sample size. It's tough to tell. And she could be making more improvements from fight to fight, where I think Lupi is just a bit more of a known commodity at this percentage. And they both have a similar expected round win percentage. So it's not like either one is superiorly standing out. Yeah, the line being wide either direction would sketch me out. So, man, psychopalastria, I've done crazier things, Might have to consider it. All right, in this next matchup here, we've got Christian C-Rod Rodriguez versus Melquizael Melcotti Costa. In this matchup, about similar age, 1 year younger for Christian Rodriguez. We've got the same reach. We've got a 3-inch height advantage for Melquizael Costa. Both typically featherweights, but C-Rod had moved up previously from the bantamweight division after missing weight about a bajillion times. So, yeah, I mean, Mel Costa, he's going to be the southpaw. C-Rod, I mean, he can switch his stance, but typically more of an orthodox fighter and more of a boxing game. Costa, a bit more of a kickboxer, where he'll throw a ton more kicks overall, and he lands 26% strikes to the legs, whereas C-Rod only lands 3%. He's really a headhunter, and it's all about being able to stuff takedowns, being able to weather the storm, and being able to push his pace down the stretch. I don't know if he really gets that chance here against Costa, who has a better distance striking differential per minute at distance. Even against Andre Fili in his last matchup, landing a lot more strikes from distance until he finds the finish after being taken down. Christian Rodriguez, he typically does better striking than average on his opponents defensively, but yeah, these are also against very one-dimensional wrestlers or people that have gas-out tendencies. And Costa, I would say, he's probably faced a higher level of competition. Yeah, definitely seems that way. And he has a higher expected round percentage. He's winning rounds at a higher rate than Christian Rodriguez. Also, he has less strikes absorbed per minute at distance. He has been knocked down more, but C-Rod isn't necessarily a big power puncher. He typically just takes advantage of guys that are gassing out, and he doesn't really knock down people that often. So both of them have similar defense, but once again, Costas is a bit better and he absorbs less strikes. He has a higher striking accuracy and a more diversified striking game. He also, they spend a lot of time being controlled, but C-Rod actually gets controlled a lot more often, and they both have a similar total control rate. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Melquizael Costa side. As a dog, he has basically all the statistical advantages that I would want to look for. I know he doesn't have the reach, but he does have the size. They are similar age. He's a southpaw. He lands a more wide variety of striking at different levels. He also lands a higher rate per minute at distance. He also has better control rate overall versus his opponents. So I also think he's got more dangerous submission game. And C-Rod hasn't really finished many fights. So Costa here as the dog shot seems to make sense to me from a tail of the tape perspective. Let me know what you guys think. If you got different ideas in the chat, or you think that C-Rod is the obvious play, or you think there's a statistic that I might have missed in the breakdown of this fight, please let me know. But we're going to move on here. We've got our next fight. We've got Jose Daniel Medina Chicho versus Ateba Gautier, the silent assassin. Nothing silent about the physique this guy's coming in with. I mean, my God, look at these guys side by side. I mean, yeah, Medina could be in some trouble from an athleticism standpoint. Also, he's going to be 4 inches shorter, giving up 7 inches of reach. And he's eaten so many strikes in the UFC and in Contender Series and on the regional scene. So the wide line on Gautier and the fact that we haven't really seen him go the distance necessarily or have great gas when he did. And Medina, he could be a survivor, but man, it's going to be really ugly. And there's nothing really statistically to go off of here besides the fact that Gautier should be younger, faster, more athletic, switch stance, 7-inch reach, 4-inch height. So, yeah, Gautier is the huge favorite, but what could possibly go wrong, right? We're going to have to pass on the money line on the favorite. I think if it's Medina, you want to get in live because he's going to lose the first round. So I would pass altogether unless you're taking the over, or if you're taking a Gautier to win this fight in round 1. I just think it's kind of square. And even if it happens, was it really going to be worth your money? I don't anticipate it. So we'll move along here. We've got Edgar Puro Shikali Shaires versus CJ Marathon Man Vergara, running around the octagon every time he gets hurt. It's just a matter of, can you catch him? Because if not, he's going to put the cardio on you. So, yeah, in this fight here, I mean, Shaires, he is going to be the 4 years younger, 3 inches of reach, 1 inch height advantage. They're both typically orthodox strikers, but Shaires, he will switch it up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, both of them have had a little bit of a tough level of competition so far in the UFC, but I think Shaires has shown way more from an athleticism, a striking, grappling, finishing potential, whereas Vergara is just kind of like weather the storm, you know? Um, and typically, Shaires is the one that's throwing up a lot more subs, whereas Vergara is having a lot more subs attempted on him. Could be a sneaky idea in that regard. Also, Shaires has been controlled a lot. So, if Vergara does survive the early going and Shaires slows down, well, Vergara could potentially put on a wrestling clinic. That's something that I'm taking away from the stats here. It looks like they both have, I mean, Vergara's got the better striking defense. Shaires does seem to have the better overall output, but they both kind of get outlanded on. It's just that Vergara's been knocked down 5 times, and I can see Shaires definitely not landing a knockdown. But if he doesn't, and if this fight goes on longer and longer, I can actually see Vergara picking up the pace. Um, I just don't know if I would really want to touch it before the fight, because I project Shaires to win the first round like 90% of the time at least. And he should win the fight the majority of the time as well. So let me know in the chat if you guys think Shaires is the clear play based off of the striking stats, the power, the finishing potential, the size, the youth. But Vergara's wrestling upside and potential cardio advantage, well, that could come into play here. So I'm curious to know what you guys think in the chat. So let me know. But we're moving on. Before we do, make sure you guys are staying hydrated out there. I know I will. So we'll see you in a second to continue the breakdown with the next fight, which will be, this one. So hang tight. All right, this is a good one. Ronaldo Lazy Boy Rodriguez versus Kevin El Gallo Negro Borjas. This is going to be a banger of a matchup. Not just how you say the names and the nicknames, but also, I mean, stylistically. Both these guys know how to get after it. I'm super excited for this one. We're starting to get into the real bangers of the card here. But, I mean, this whole card should be amazing. UFC Mexico City. But, oh, man. The action in this one, Ronaldo Rodriguez, he's going to be 2 years younger. He's giving up 3 inches of reach. He's going to be 1 inch taller. They're both typically orthodox fighters. And overall, I mean, typically Borjas is losing rounds at a much higher rate than Rodriguez. Also, we've seen Borjas hurt and knocked out in the UFC, whereas Rodriguez, he's been knocked down, but he hasn't been knocked out. And I think they're going to let him fight in UFC Mexico City. I don't think there's going to be any early stoppages. So Rodriguez, we've seen him, I don't think either guy really has a good striking differential at distance. It's just when you go ahead and say, okay, well, Borjas still absorbs more strikes. He may land more, but he still absorbs more as well. So, and Rodriguez, if he's absorbing more strikes, well, what's he going to do? Well, he's going to go ahead and he's going to spend 49% of his total fight time in control position. He's only spent 16 total percent being controlled, but Borjas, he only spends 2% in control position. So I don't expect wrestling to be on the docket for Borjas. Whereas, I mean, Rodriguez has proven like he can stuff and defend against takedowns and scramble and get out of control positions, but also he can shoot takedowns as well. Now, he's only shot 1 takedown per 5 minutes at distance, but he's parlayed that into 49% of control and 75% of total control rate against his opponents. I think that's the big upside here against Borjas. And I would lean to him as the slight favorite because I think the striking, Borjas is going to try to bring a higher pace, but the takedown threat is going to mute that as he spends more and more time off of his back as the fight goes on. So, yeah, I'll take Ronaldo Rodriguez here. Lazy Boy, hopefully you've been not so lazy in the gym as a favorite. Um, it's kind of a playable price, but it's getting away from being a playable price. So we'll have to look into that. But the stats are telling me, even though Boras has the reach, he doesn't have the defense or the ability to use his reach. And Rodriguez could use his wrestling to his advantage. Make sure, if you guys haven't already, you know, it would be kind of messed up if you hadn't liked the show, if you hadn't subscribed to the channel. But there's one way I'd forgive you if you do the right thing. You could subscribe to the channel right now. You could like this video, share it with your friends, let everyone know that we're going live. Don't tell grandma. We're digging into the couch cushions for all of our big lines on our bets. But otherwise, make sure you join us live every Thursday. Me, the guru, the best bets, best guests, always free picks. Follow us on all the affiliated outlets. It's Pickett, Bet MMA for the bets, the socials. We're on X, Instagram, Verdict and Tapology for all of our picks. I mean, come on, guys. If you're not doing it, make sure you're doing the right thing. We're going to move on to the main card. Stay hydrated, my friends. All right, we've got David Black Spartan Martinez versus Simon the Sacrifice Oliveira. Oops, that's a TB nickname. And I think I tipped my hand as to what might be happening here. Simon Oliveira, he's had a long layoff. No real looks of where he's been or what he's been up to when you go dig through the socials. Hey, Moyes, what's going on? Appreciate you joining the show. Always a supporter of the channel. Always a supporter of Guru's Gut Reaction and TB's Tale of the Tape. So shout out to Moyes. He's a real one. Be like Moyes. Make sure you're commenting on the channel, on the show, and let us know what you think. Yeah, this is the carousel here. I think Simon Oliveira is being set up for failure. He's a sacrificial lamb. David Martinez is being priced as a large favorite, and I think he delivers. The Black Spartan, he's going to be giving up 6 inches of reach, but he is 2 inches taller. What's going on, Dixon? Appreciate you being here in body, mind, and spirit. That's large. If you're not connected with the Holy Trinity, I don't know what to tell you. Be like Moyes. Be like Dixon. Make sure you guys are helping support the channel. The Black Spartan here, man, I think he's going to have the ability to stay safe. Simon Oliveira, he doesn't have the defense to take advantage of his reach. He's a spin merchant, and he's a BJJ off his back type of guy. He doesn't have real wrestling. Martinez should be able to do his thing. But making his debut, are we going to trust the money line price here? No. But Simon, I think he's definitely one of those guys that could fall off a cliff with his cardio. And yeah, it could be Guram versus Cowie. Simon could land some spinning stuff. He could be the better fighter, but he's had a layoff. I don't love it. And I'm not going to back the favorite here from a money line perspective. I think it could be cheeky to look at a potential over or a fight goes the distance. But yeah, I think the best thing to do in this fight would be to stay away because it's being priced like a squash matchup. And that's what I think it is. But just in case it's not, why would you place your money on such a large favorite? So we're going to learn to kind of pass on a few of these matchups and find a way to use our money a little bit better on some of these other matchups and dig for some of those grandma's couch cushion plays because, yeah, giving up 6 inches of reach is not cute. And if Martinez is trying to play the counter game and he can't measure his distance and eats a bunch of kicks, well, we won't be happy over here. So we're not going to do it. We're moving on. We've got El Nino Problema, Raul Rosas Jr. versus Vince Vendetta Morales, V for Vendetta. Yeah, I mean, this one is another one of those potential squash matches. Raul Rosas clearly being set up to have success. It's just the last time we were in elevation, this guy ends up pulling out last second. He got sick. Vince Morales, too little too late in previous matchups, whereas Raul Rosas, he typically has an ugly moment here or there in his matchups. So there's nothing I would want to do to bet this guy pre-fight. But yeah, if you look at just like statistical analysis, I mean, there's nothing pretty on the Vince Morales side. He gets outstruck. He gets out-controlled. He doesn't really spend a lot of time in control position compared to his opponents. He doesn't really land at a great accuracy from distance. He doesn't really have a super high, volume from distance. So I think even if Rosas wanted to just kind of like chill and try to be the faster guy for the first little bit of the fight, he could like see how things are going and try to preserve a little energy early. But anytime he wants to get the grappling going, I think he's going to be able to dominate the early exchanges. And even if he can't get a sub early, I think he might be able to as the fight goes on here. He's got a way higher submission attempt ratio and a way higher takedown ratio. And I just trust that, he's had a lot more grappling experience. Vince Morales has had a ton of experience. I just don't love that we've seen these improvements in leaps and bounds against like super low level of competition where like Raul Rosas is doing it all kind of on the largest stage and in front of everyone. And he's been able to put away some people that haven't been finished before as well. So I could definitely see him doing that in this scenario, but it's really tough to trust the very large favorite once again when cardio might have been a concern here or there for him. So, and man, it's going to be really interesting. At the same time, he could be making vast improvements between fights. So it's hard to just say like he's going to be the same guy every time. Whereas Vince Morales, we kind of know who Vince Morales is at this point. And if he was going to rain on someone's parade, probably was going to be Elijah Smith last time out. So I'm not going to go Vince here. I think Raul's got it. And that guy's chin, you can't sub him. Nothing's getting under that chin. All right, next fight, we've got Kelvin Nasrat Gastelum versus Joe Bodybags Pfeiffer. Yeah, this could get ugly for Kelvin potentially. The funniest part, though, is that, Joe Pfeiffer, he's going to be 5 years younger, 4 inches of height. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. But, yeah, Kelvin, how's he only 33? That's the funny part. He is the southpaw in this matchup, and we know that Pfeiffer doesn't like calf kicks, and he doesn't like working off the back foot. So if Kelvin could kind of work a safe game plan and use his defense, great. But I just think like Pfeiffer having the wrestling in his back pocket, and we see that he has a very low like percentage of time being controlled, and he has a better control rate against his opponents. It's just, he's only landed 3 total takedowns in the UFC, and a couple of them are against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. So, if he commits to the takedowns and he goes for the sub, great. Yeah, maybe Nasrat's getting sub. But Pfeiffer, he really hasn't shown it in that regard. And can we trust his cardio to do it consistently at elevation here? I don't know that I would expect it. So if this fight's taking place at distance, I think Kelvin can actually annoy him at range. He's going to be the better striker statistically. He lands a wider variety of striking. I think he's got, he's been knocked down a bit more, and that's where Pfeiffer can hurt him. But yeah, I'm curious. And that's why he's back at 185. And that's probably also his issue. So trusting a guy like Kelvin at this stage, he surprised Daniel Rodriguez with the fight week. Hey, sorry, we're going to do this at 185 instead. Or was it fight day? Like, this guy pulled a fast one last fight, and Joe Pfeiffer, he knows it's at 185, and he's going to be doing his thing out here. So I got him body bags, and maybe he's the first guy to finish Kelvin, but I don't know. That's also a hard bet to make. So I'll be curious to see what the fight goes the distances. Just, hey, we've seen Pfeiffer go over previously, and if he's losing, he hasn't necessarily been finished super easily. So, yeah, I could see it over in a multitude of ways. Could be interesting either way. The stats, they lead me to say that Kelvin's probably the better guy from range, a bit more volume, a bit better defense. But he's got the worst knockdown ratio, worst power. He's older. He's accrued a lot more damage. So it's tough to trust him, especially since he loves his alcohol. All right, we're getting there. We've got Manuel El Loco Torres versus Drew the Crimson Chin Dober. All right, well, El Loco is a 30-year-old prospect here. He will have 6 years younger, 3-inch reach advantage, 2-inch height advantage. He is a switch stance fighter. Dober will be the southpaw. Yeah, if you look at the expected rounds, Torres typically does better, but he also doesn't typically go too far in his fights. So it's all kind of round one or bust here. And Drew Dober, we know that he trains at elevation. He has a lot more average fight time per minute. He also, we've seen Manuel Torres. He lands typically more strikes than his opponents per minute at distance. He's also got a very high knockdown rate. Yeah, and he's going to come out explosive. It's just, are you going to put out Drew Dober before he can put you out? And Terrence McKinney nearly does it, but can't. Matt Perfola, he has success, but doesn't quite put him fully out, And then there's a lot of wrestling and grappling in the other finish losses of Drew Dober. So, yeah, I mean, Manuel, if you can't do it early, well, that's where I think it gets really interesting because even Drew Dober, he's got a higher wrestling rate. He has a bit more time being controlled, but he also spends a little bit more time in control position than Manuel Torres. So that could be a sneaky thing, like in the Alexander Hernandez fight. He uses his takedowns. It's just Torres early, man, it might get ugly, and it might get ugly fast for Drew Dober. So a lot of volatility in this matchup. A lot of this Manuel Torres stats are against low-level competition and early in fights. And his last matchup versus Bahamondes wasn't necessarily pretty. So, man, this is a close matchup. And I just think Drew Dober's level of competition, his ability to have, been through the fire time and time again, could be interesting, especially at dog money. So we'll see where we're at. Finally, last but not least, we are on our main event of the evening. It's Brandon, the Assassin Baby Moreno versus Steve Astro Boy Erceg. Yeah, it should be a good matchup. Steve Erceg, going to be 2 years younger. He's giving up. So Moreno's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Erceg will be 1 inch taller. Typically, I mean, Moreno is a better round winner on average. He also has never been finished in his career, whereas we've seen Erceg knocked down and knocked out in separate occasions. Also, Erceg has faced a lower level of competition overall. Moreno's fought the who's who, and he's had 2 stints in the UFC, and they have a very similar striking differential per minute at distance. And Moreno has landed more knockdowns than Erceg has. Steve Dunder Mifflin Erceg, that's a pretty good one. And have to side with Erceg. I mean, it's tempting at dog money, right? But ultimately, they have a very similar striking differential. Erceg typically can outland his opponents a little bit more at distance. But Brandon Moreno has better striking defense. Also, he's landed way more takedowns, and he spent more time in control position than Steve Erceg has. Erceg does have a paper chin. That's pretty funny, like Dunder Mifflin. And he looks like Michael Scott. That's pretty good, Dixon. Nice job. And we'll see, Moise. We'll see, because Brandon Moreno, you're not knocking him out. Erceg, he could be knocked out, but Brandon Moreno's not necessarily knocking anybody out, especially not with headshots. And we haven't seen Erceg really hurt to the body or anything like that. So I don't think either guy's submitting the other. And I think it's going to be competitive grappling and wrestling exchanges. I think it's going to be competitive striking. So I think it's probably almost a guarantee this fight goes the distance. And that's where you would almost lean a dog or pass. But yeah, it's a dog or pass. It's fight goes the distance and dog or pass. I can't bet Brandon Moreno is a favorite, and I would need to do a little bit more research before I feel super confident about Erceg. But as this dog shot, it could be a potential one. I feel better that Moreno has more experience, especially at this elevation, especially he's fought in front of this crowd before. It's his people. He's going to have the home crowd edge. Erceg, he's traveling a bit more to get there. So I think a lot of things favor Moreno inside and outside the octagon. And Moreno is going to be the pick on paper. All right. Well, if you guys enjoyed the show, and even if you didn't, I hope you throw a like, be like Drew Dober. But he's fought there. It's also true that, Steven Erceg has never won there. But they both have it. He would have more experience fighting there. So Drew Dober raising that flag. Brandon Moreno a little confused. Steve Erceg taking over the city with Manuel Loco Torres. Make sure you are doing the right thing, throwing a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you tune in Thursday live. Have fun with us. And we're going to have an awesome time breaking down this card. Special guests, best bets, always free. Do the right thing and make sure you follow us. We will see you guys live on Thursday, me and the guru and our special guest. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you, Dixon. Be like Dixon and join us on Thursday as well. I will see you there. Have a great rest of your day. Like and subscribe. Adios.